Hello, my art friends. Welcome back. Here is another vanishing point lesson, this time using letters instead of shapes. Oh, okay, I take that back. Letters are made from lines, so are shapes, so I guess technically letters are shapes. Using letters, those specific shapes, to use vanishing point as well. The supplies you're going to need: pencil, eraser, straight edge, or a ruler. And here's an example. This is one I did with my name. Here's one my son Eli did. All right, we're gonna get started. Start with a sheet of paper. Graph paper would be really cool for this. If you have some graph paper like this, you could use that. I'm gonna use plain paper just to make it really easy to see. Last time when we did our shapes on our project, we put our vanishing point in the center. This time we're gonna find the bottom middle of our paper and add our vanishing point there. This is going to be something called worm's eye view. Let me show you again this picture. If you are below something looking up, we call that worm's eye view, like your little worm down here. But if I were to flip this and my vanishing point were on top, this would be bird's eye view, and you would be looking down on the objects. You could do it either way, but probably for this first time it'd be better if we worked the same direction. So let's all go from worm's eye view, and then maybe you want to try it the other way next time. I'm going to start by just adding two very light lines. I'm going to erase these later, so I don't want to make them too dark. Two very light lines, and this is just so that I can kind of get my letters the same height. You don't have to measure. If you wanted to, you could, to make sure that your lines are parallel. That means that they're the same distance apart, but I'm going to just guesstimate. And we're going to use block letters for this, but I start my block letters by just putting in the outside lines of them. So these are going to be the outside lines of my block letters. And this time I'm just going to do the word art. All right, so I'm going to go back and I'm going to turn these into my block letters. Again, it's really up to you how exact you want these to be. I could, and I think I will go back and use my ruler just to get my edges straight. I think that's probably the most important lines here. And then, okay, watch this. Miss Larry's gonna erase this. Sorry if I'm making you erase yours too. Every letter is gonna be a little different, but I think I'm going to start from a central point on this letter so that my angles are the same. And then I'm just going to go in and add the A there. You know, depending on what letters you're using, you just figure it out for each one, right? No wrong way to do this. All right, letter R. I'm going to take my center part here. I can straighten up my lines a little, and then it's probably good as you're going to erase the lines that you don't need so it doesn't get confusing later. A-R-T. All right, we have the word art. I'm sorry, I'm shaking the table every time I erase. There we go. Okay, now to the vanishing point. Now that I have my letters, we're going to look at the corners, and when we did our other one, we looked at the sides of the shape, and we used two lines to each letter, or each shape, sorry, but this time with letters, it's going to vary between our letters. We're going to look at the bottom of each of our letters, and at the corner, inside corner of each of our letters. So on the letter A, the inside, or this line that's closest to our vanishing point, the side would be this. On our T, the side that's closest to our vanishing point would be the left side. So do you see that? This side of the A is closer to the vanishing point, but this side of the T. I think that's going to make sense. Again, I like to put my pencil at my vanishing point, and here we go. Remember, each bottom corner of the letter camera's shaking more than usual. Maybe that'll help. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and do all the bottom corners first. If you made your block letters thicker, then these lines would be thicker, which kind of is a cool effect. All right, so there's the bottom of all my letters. Now let's go back and we're going to look at the top. So the A is going to be a little tricky because it actually hides behind the letter. So I don't even need that line because it's going to run right through the middle of my letter. And if this were solid, you wouldn't see it anyway. So I'm going to leave that there. And the same for my R, but this side of my R is going to bump right there. And the T, I'm going to see this side. And on this part of the T, it's going to bump right there. All right, looks a little different because my A just happened to line up right where this is, so that works. All right, so next we're going to take I'm going to use markers and colored pencils. You could use markers and crayons would work just as fine, or pastels. You could do it all the same part if you wanted to, but I'm going to take a color for each letter and color each of my letters in. And then I want to talk to you just about one other way to create the illusion of depth, and that'll be by using color. I'm going to try to do my very best workmanship here. Color my letters in neatly. You can even straighten them up a little with your marker. Again, remember those straight lines is part of what's going to help that illusion keep going. So I'm not super happy with this side. Maybe I'll still straighten that out with the marker a little more. Make my A a little wider. Okay. All right, so I would go through and do the same for each of my letters. And I don't want to bore you guys by you watching me color it in. I'll do these two, and then you get the idea. All right. I'm going to take my colored pencils now. I'm going to use the same color, but I'm going to use value. We've talked a lot in art. Well, I'm going to color my last one in while I talk to you about this. We've talked a lot in art about value this year, or I'm sorry, about color this year. We looked at the color wheel, we talked about warm and cool, we talked about analogous, and we talked about complementary colors in a lot of these classes. It's been really fun, and one concept that we've brushed on but we didn't really get to talk about was value. That's the lightness or darkness of a color. So I can have a really dark version of red, or I can fade it out into a lighter value of red, and that's part of what's going to give this a little more depth. So if you look at the example here, I used my marker here, I used dark red here, and I let it get lighter as it went further away. Just kind of adds to that illusion that it's moving. So I would want to make it really dark here. And you can do that by holding your pencil down close to the lead. Just gives you a little more pressure on it. And then I just naturally do this. I move my hand down my pencil. So I'm going to go a little lighter now. So I've moved my hand down the pencil. We have a good bit of space here to cover. And then I want to go even lighter. I'm just going to keep moving down my pencil. I'm putting less pressure too, so it's not all about your pencil grip. You just naturally put less pressure on it as you move your hand down the pencil. Physics, levers, look at that. It all, science, math, they all interconnect even with art. All right, so there's a pretty good value, dark to light. You could go back over it again. Here's something that I think is neat. I talk a lot about going the same direction with your lines. On this project, it would be kind of cool to go back over it the opposite way. Part of it is using colored pencils, crayons, pastels. This just gives it a little more solid look to it. And if you have bigger spaces, if your block letters were bigger, you're going to see this a little bit more. Just gives it a little more fullness. Notice I'm not just scribbling any direction. I'm very purposeful about going up and down or side to side. So I would do the same on this side. I would start dark, and then I move my hand back and go lighter. You know what? Because I increased that line, this line needs to increase too. You guys get the idea. And lighter as I go down. And then I would probably come back over, go left to right. And then for the inside of this A, I'm going to do something very similar. I'm going to go, but I'm going to turn my paper this way. I'm going to go dark around one side and then lighter as I get further away. This is just giving the illusion that this is going back. I might come back and go this way now. Just makes it look a little more solid. It's just part of this supply. Not every supply works the same way, right? Colored pencils. And then I would do the same down my letter on this side. Darkness kind of more to the left-hand side, lighter as I move across. So this way I'm using value. When I did the bottom corners, I was using value to show length. As I'm going across, I'm using value to show width of my letter, or the side-to-side part of my letter. Oh, and I wish I was there with you so you could say, Miss Larrabee, that doesn't make sense. If it doesn't make sense, you can email me. We can talk about it more, and maybe I could explain it in another way that would make sense. But now I'm concentrating on going side to side instead of up and down. So all along this edge will be a little darker, and as it goes to the side, it's going to get lighter. If you think about it, this is one of those things. We talk about this in class often when we're together. If you think about it, it makes sense. And I know it does to you too. It's a little bit of a mind puzzle sometimes, art can be. So now I have this value and this variation that's starting to make my letters look a little more 3D. So as you're going through, let me go back. Now that you know what you're looking at, let me show you this finished one. You can see that I started dark. My value goes lighter as it goes down to the vanishing point. And I did that for the bottom of all of my letters and shapes. And then I went back in these parts in the middle where I wanted to show depth and width instead of length. I went more to the side with my darkness. And my value goes from left to right. All the way to here. And then I switch and I go right to left, which makes sense because everything's coming towards the center. All right, I cannot wait to see how it goes with your name. There's some great YouTube videos out there that explain this concept as well, so maybe that would help too. Please send me pictures if you do it, okay? Can't wait to see.